चैतन्यमयी सत्यमयी परमे आनन्दमयी चैतन्यमयी सत्यमयी परमे सत्यमयी परमे. Vande Mataram. A hearty welcome to all of you to this Sunlit Path Study Circle. Today is the 20th day of this auspicious month, and on this special occasion we have with us our beloved Naradjee from Matri Mandir, Auroville. Let us welcome our beloved Naradjee from Auroville. In this occasion, he will be enlightening us by his powerful words on the topic Mother's Dream of Auroville. So, now I request Naradjee to present his talk. Pranam Naradjee, Vande Mataram. Please.
Pranam to all of you. I cannot see any of you, and I would like to. Is that possible? Namaste, Susmita. I don't have any volume. Hello. I have been asked to speak.
Yes, audible, sir. Yes, you are audible. Yes, let's continue. Please.
I have been asked to speak on Auroville. But how can one truly speak on Auroville when it is the whole world encapsulated in one small area of South India? All I can say to begin is that in the 1960s, I had an accident on an icy road in New York State. And my wife went through the windshield. And as a result, we, after many months of rehabilitation, we received $3,000, for medical expenses. And I wrote to Mother and said, Mother, I want to send that money to you because you saved our lives. Mother replied, why don't you use the money to come for the inauguration of Auroville? Well, that was something. Do you know that each ticket cost $1,500? So the entire $3,000 paid for 2 tickets. As soon as we arrived, Mother asked to see us. And at one point she said to me, you don't want to come to Auroville in a few years? I feel you can do something there. I replied, Mother, whatever is your wish. And then we went back to the U.S. And Mother had said about 9 months she would invite me back. But it wasn't to be 9 months. It was hardly a few weeks later when Udar, one of her secretaries, wrote to me and said, "Mother would like you to prepare to come and build the gardens of the Matrimandir." So I wrote back and said, "Does Mother want me to do physical work, or does she want me to go to college?" Mother replied, "Both." So I had to work during the day and go to college at night. And then only some weeks later, Mother sent a telegram to me, "A bientôt, see you soon." And so we prepared to leave America and come to India, which is my spiritual home. Now, since Auroville is going to be the paradigm of the new creation, it naturally has to go through many, many stages, and all different kinds of people must be represented. Sri Aurobindo once said, "I don't think saints would be very good for this yoga." And so ordinary people who had heard the call, who received the call, came in rugged caravans across the land, in vehicles that kept breaking down, and they finally arrived in Auroville. Auroville at that time was a total wasteland because the farming that was being done was so poor that we could watch all the topsoil washing into the canyons during the monsoon rains. And it was said that no farmer could raise even 2 bags of groundnuts in one season. And no family could exist on that. I arrived and found a place very near the area Mother called Peace. And Peace was the area where the Matrimandir would be built some years later. I found a place that was so beautiful. It had about 12 mango trees, a large canyon in the back, and in addition to that, it had a road on one side. So once we could fence it in, it was relatively protected from the pigeons and the goats. Not totally, though, because sometimes if they got in, they could destroy a month of work in 1 hour. During this time, I had many talks with Mother, many meetings with Mother, and I sent many, many flowers to her to be named. And she named such beautiful flowers, such as remembrance of Sri Aurobindo, to live only for the divine, charm of the new creation, realization of the new creation, and many others. Now, we know that Auroville is going through many things, and We must understand Mother's words when she says, men have nothing to do with the creation of Auroville. And here's a series of questions that were asked to the mother that you may have seen and may not have seen. The first question is, who has taken the initiative for the construction of Auroville? And Mother replies, the Supreme Lord. Then a big question, who participates in the financing of Auroville? Mother replies, the Supreme Lord. The third question, if one wants to live in Auroville, what does it imply for oneself? Mother writes, to try to attain the supreme perfection. Now, this fourth question that was asked Mother is extremely important. Must one be a student of yoga in order to live in Auroville? And look at Mother's answer. All life is yoga. Therefore, one cannot live without practicing the supreme yoga. And that is our yoga, the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. Now, the fifth question comes about. What will be the ashram's role in Auroville? And there's much controversy about this. We can understand that. Different people, different groups wanting to take over. Here is Mother's reply. So simple, so perfect. Whatever the Supreme Lord wants it to be. Question number 6 is, again, so simple. Will there be camping grounds in Auroville? Now that question was asked because Auroville was virtually a desert. There were a few palm trees, and I believe they were the toddy palms, scattered around this huge, huge area, and nothing else. Standing at the Matrimandir, I could see all the way to the Bay of Bengal. I could see, in fact, to the west, many, many buildings, cities in Pondicherry, or just outside. Now you cannot see anything because the green belt that was created has changed the whole climate of Auroville. But I'll dwell on these things a little later. Let me continue with the questions. Will there be camping grounds in Auroville? Mother says, all things are as they should be, when they should be. Question number 7. Will family life continue in Auroville? Mother says something so important. If one has not gone beyond that, we have to take this very much to heart. Take it deep into our consciousness. Can one be an atheist in Auroville? Mother writes, if one has not gone beyond that. Number 10, will there be a social life in Auroville? Mother writes, if one has not gone beyond that. Wow. Will there be compulsory community activities in Auroville. Mother writes, nothing is compulsory. In fact, Mother wanted Auroville to be what she called a divine anarchy. And she did not want any rules. Now there are dozens and dozens and dozens of rules. But the only rule that Mother made, because it was a necessity, the drugs are not permitted in Auroville. That's the only rule she wrote. Question number 12. Will money be used in Auroville? Very, very powerful statement from Mother. No, Auroville will have money relations only with the outside world. She wanted no money relations in the township of Auroville. Question number 13, and I think, there's still more, yeah. How will work be organized and distributed in Auroville? Mother's answer is so profound. Money would be no more the sovereign Lord. Individual value would have an importance, individual value would have a greater importance than the value due to material wealth and financial position. Just think about this a moment. The value of each person would be much greater in importance than anyone's material wealth or financial position. Mother continues, work would not be there as the means for gaining one's livelihood. So, in other words, one would not have to work to support oneself. It would be the means whereby to express oneself, develop one's capacities and possibilities, while doing at the same time service to the whole group, which on its side would provide for each one's subsistence and for the field of his work. This has always been so important to many of us here in Auroville, that one would offer one's service to the divine without attachment to the fruits of action. And one would receive what one needed that month. Now, this is very similar to the ashram's prosperity system, where one would write a check to the mother. I need this and that, soap, toothbrush, shaving gear, things like that. Whatever one wrote, Mother would supply. Now, for me, for example, the musician, truly the musician, would offer his music and receive in turn what he needed. The artist is art, the poet is poetry, the architect is architecture, the landscaper is skilled with flowers and plants. Now I have number 14. What will be the relations between the inhabitants of Auroville and the outside world? And Mother gives this incredible answer. Each person is allowed full freedom. see no restrictions in this yoga, no specific mantras to follow, no one way, because each of us have our own path. The external relations of residents in Auroville will be established for each one according to his personal aspiration and his activities within Auroville. So I've pretty much covered that already. Whatever one's activities were, maybe cooking, for which we now have a solar kitchen, and we have many restaurants here in Auroville. And if one was particularly adept at cooking or even cleaning, that would be one's service, and one would get in turn what one needed. The next question: who will own the land and buildings of Auroville? Now, this is something that is still not clear in our consciousness, because Mother's answer is so simple: the Supreme Lord. Next question: what languages will be used for teaching? Mother writes, all the spoken languages of the earth. Now, in 1966, in January, the following was written: if you ask Mother for news of Auroville, she will answer, Auroville is going well and is becoming more and more real. But its realization does not proceed in the usual human way, and it is more visible to the inner consciousness than to the outer eye. I will share with you a dream I had on December 29th, 2001. Last night, I dreamed of Auroville and was shown the many changes that were taking place, things that would survive and others that would die off. I awoke once to write a few lines, then went back to sleep, where the dream continued. Each time I awoke briefly and then went to sleep, I dreamed again of Auroville. There was no emotion involved. All was very quiet, and I was shown the changes almost as a moving picture, but in 3 dimensions. I remember especially the beauty of the land, the small groups of people gathered together, both Aurovillians and villagers, discussing the momentous things that were happening. Music was also involved, but I can recall nothing more. These were extraordinary experiences that I had with Mother. I remember one that's called a dream experience. And I am with Mother at the top of the worlds, and she raises her hand and moves it in a circular dimension and says to me, I have shown you the diversity in order that you may realize the unity. How powerful it was. Now, we go on to another thing that is, I think, so important to me. I'd like to talk to you about the green belt and the Matramandya Gardens Nursery. I don't know how much time I have, but I'll do this first and then maybe we can get into that. This is a question that we must understand to be a true Aurovillian. Now, Mother doesn't say anything about communes or peace or bliss or all these aspects of life that are so common to us, family, children, parents. The first necessity is the inner discovery. In order to know what one truly is behind social, moral, cultural, racial, and heredity appearances. Mother just gives it all to us. Social, moral, cultural, racial, and hereditary appearances. Continuing, at the center, there is a being free, vast, and knowing, who awaits our discovery and who ought to become the active center of our being and our life in Auroville. So you see, this is not something like communes, even though some of them were very, very profound. Mother is telling us here that we have to find the center of our being, and that can become the active center in Auroville. Now, the next one, which is equally profound. The fulfillment of one's desires bars the way to the inner discovery, which can only be achieved in the peace and transparency of perfect disinterestedness. This is the yoga, so clear. First of all, the fulfillment of desires has to go. Mother continues, one lives in Auroville in order to be free from moral and social conventions. But this freedom must not be a new slavery to the ego, to its desires and ambitions. Okay, this is very, very powerful. We have to live in Auroville and be free from all these moral and social conventions and rules. But Mother tells us that this freedom must not be a new slavery to the ego or to its desires and ambitions. So important. This is the disinterested work done for the divine. And tomorrow we have Mother's birthday, and we have a program. We're giving a talk on the flowers in a new place in Oregon called Mother's Flower Garden. And our aspiration is to grow all the flowers possible that Mother named in this garden. It will be the first time we have succeeded. Next, the Aurovillian should lose the sense of personal possession. How difficult this is for all of our humanity. I remember people saying, you shouldn't buy costly things. You shouldn't spend money on costly things. Give them to the poor. And Mother used to wear these beautiful saris. And one person criticized her and said, why should Mother wear expensive clothing? Sri Aurobindo replied, would you have the divine dress in rags? So we have to think in Auroville of the importance of beauty, and everything we touch must be beautiful. It must be informed with the highest beauty that we can create. So now Mother says, for our passage in the material world, what is indispensable to our life and to our action is put at our disposal according to the place we must occupy. The more we are consciously in contact with our inner being, the more are the exact means given to us. So one has to understand here that one should not have just useless desires. I know a story of someone in the ashram who every month would ask Mother for a bar of soap. And when that person passed away, there were about 30 bars of soap or more in his bathroom. So we have to become consciously in contact with our inner being, and then what we need will be clearer. Because actually, what do we need in life? We need food, we need water, air, some clothing, a place to sleep. How much more than that when we really think about it deeply? Now this next one is extremely important, and it's something that has been my life for these 85 plus years. Work, even manual work, is something indispensable for the inner discovery. If one does not work, if one does not put his consciousness into matter, the latter will never develop. To let the consciousness organize a bit of matter by means of one's body is very good. To establish order around oneself helps to bring order within oneself. One should organize one's life not according to outer and artificial rules, but according to an organized inner consciousness. For if one lets life go on without subjecting it to the control of the higher consciousness, it becomes fickle and inexpressive, and is to waste one's time in the sense that matter remains without any conscious utilization. So we're going to continue for a little bit before I speak about the Matrimanya nursery. and the afforestation. The next thing Mother talks about is the whole earth. The whole earth must prepare itself for the advent of the new species, and Auroville wants to work consciously to hasten this advent. Now we can see with all the disharmony around us and all the different people taking sides that we really cannot do anything but perhaps slow this supramental force on the earth. And even then, since the Supreme Lord is in charge of everything, what have we to do but change ourselves? Now, it's asked, what would this new species in Auroville be like? Mother says, little by little, it will be revealed to us what this new species must be. And meanwhile, the best course is to consecrate oneself entirely to the divine. Now, Mother wrote this at the end of 1971, not even 2 years before her departure. And she adds to this whole document, the only true freedom is the one obtained by union with the divine. And she goes on, one can unite with the divine only by mastering one's ego. When we came to Auroville, there were very few of us. Oh, there might have been 18 or 20 people at the most. And then people began to come more frequently, more often. And the work at the Matrimondia Nursery, beginning at the end of 1969, continued with many of the first Aurovillians joining us and working with us. So the first thing I had in mind, or in my consciousness, was to find trees that were suitable for the environment of South India. Now, of course, we could introduce new species, magnificently beautiful species, but we had many, many lovely flowering plants already. So I began propagating plants. And at the same time, I began growing in these little plastic bags hundreds and hundreds of varieties of trees to give to the Greenbelt people who were building the forests of Auroville. There were trees such as work that we would consider nurse trees. In other words, providing some shade and some habitat for slower growing hardwood trees to grow. And I would go regularly with the chief conservators of forests to the Western Ghats and collect seeds with them for the Matrimondia. They would come to visit the nursery very regularly and write beautiful things about what they had seen. So we had very little money in those days. And when Shyam Sundar was in charge, He couldn't even give me 500 rupees for a month's work of the 12 young men in the nursery. We had to manage on our own. We found that the kitchen at peace, the food was just not good enough, and I wrote to Mother and asked Mother, could we have our own nursery, our own kitchen in the nursery? And Mother wrote back, yes, it can be done. See with Nolini. Nolini, of course, was one of my closest friends, guides. And at the end of this talk, I will share a memory from my birthday in 1979, when he speaks about Auroville, and he speaks about many other things also. So, to continue, arts began to thrive in Auroville. We had choirs with good conductors, good singers. I was asked to have many performances in Auroville and the ashram. At that time, the ashram was very close to Auroville. The only time it separated was when Pranab found out about the large distribution of drugs in Auroville, and he would not allow his students to go to help any longer. Actually, prior to that, boys and girls used to come out at midnight and dig holes for me for the trees to be planted the next days and weeks. And they were wonderful. They did so much work with such joy. And it's hard work. Digging this clay soil in Auroville is not easy. Now, these communities that came, I remember Bob and Deborah Lawler. They had built a beautiful dam with gigantic granite blocks. And we went out one day during the monsoon to see how well it held. And the force of the water was so strong that it just washed all the blocks away. So you can imagine that force of water taking out the topsoil from Auroville. So we had to speak with the farmers, build what we called bunds, B-U-N-D-S, at the highest point of the land, so that there would be catchment areas for the rain in each section between the bunds. For a while there was contention because many of the farmers felt that we were taking away their rain. But eventually they understood. They are also very, very industrious people who started working to build dams in these gigantic canals that had formed from the topsoil flowing into the sea. And many, many dams, check dams they were called, had provided Auroville with much higher water. Some of the wells were 20 meters. Now some of them are 200 and 250 meters because of the amount of use. And one doesn't know as yet what will happen when there are 30, 40, 50,000 people. There is an attempt at desalinization, but it's a costly affair, and the results are not known. For example, will they be crossing government land that will need permission? Will it be panchayat land where permission will be required? Will people break through the pipes to get water for their farms, etc.? So, beginning at the Matrimandir gardens, I began planting trees in what we called then the outer garden, which is now called, I think, the park. And the outer gardens, I met with Roger, and we would agree that a whole area could be planted with special plants. Many of them are still there, although many have been destroyed by cutting by chainsaws. And beautiful trees that often were given to me by the foresters or sent to me by these marvelous organizations in India, such as the Lal Bagh, which at that time was under the control of Dr. Marigauda. Things from famous horticulturists such as Dr. M.S. Randhawa, Dr. B.P. Pal, and other people in northern India. So there were associations like the Agri-Horticultural Society of Calcutta, who grew very rare trees and would send plants and seeds to us. I also had a guru in Chennai, Madras at that time, who taught me the secrets of flowering bougainvilleas. And I'm here to share that with anyone who comes to Auroville or Pondicherry. Now, is my time about up? Can someone tell me it's about 1:25?
No, sir, you can show.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the system of hierarchy in Auroville. And it's a current problem. The secret and the answer to this is collaboration. Each side must learn to talk to the other side. To set aside one or two of their problems, each side has to do this. My friend Louis Allen, who was very instrumental in the Lake Estate, which is so beautiful, and a lot of it owned by the ashram. There's mainland, there's Matrudyanam, and there's Merveille. 3 magnificent places. And Louis Allen wrote to Mother, and Mother wrote, and I can only paraphrase, I don't have a quote here, but it is only in collective harmony that changes can be made. So that collective harmony can only occur when people are willing to talk to each other, to collaborate with each other, not to impose their will, but to listen and come to agreements in peace and harmony. So I'm going to close with my experience with Nolini on my birthday, July 29th, 1979. A couple of days before my birthday, I wrote to Nolini asking if I could see him on that day, giving a brief summary of recent events regarding the matrimondia and asking the following question: is Auroville, individually and collectively, now strong enough to stand on its own and seek the truth of its being? Or is a reconciliation with the Sri Aurobindo Society necessary? Mary Helen gave him the letter. Mary Helen was my wife. And he told her I should come on the morning of my birthday. When we came to the door, he warmly called, come in, sit down anywhere. All places are the same. And there were only 2 seats. So he indicated to Mary Helen to take his secretary's chair while I sat on the floor near him. Though we can't construct his words completely, we will try to give the substance of what he said and hopefully convey something of the feeling behind the words. It was an aspect of Nolini one rarely sees, a great sweetness and closeness. And contrary to his usual tendency to avoid commenting on any current situation, he spoke generously and candidly to us for more than 10 minutes. He began speaking about Auroville, and he said, I have read your letter. I had written a 2-page single-spaced, actually, I had typed, no computers then, I had typed a 2-page single-spaced letter to him. So he says the following. He began speaking about Auroville and the numerous experiments Mother is making there. He said she is trying so many ways. That touched me so deeply. And spoke of individuals and groups as units expressing or working out something specific. He said the whole world is like that, but you haven't come here to be like the rest of the world. You've come here to realize the oneness, the unity. Then he said, pointing to each of us in turn, first to Mary Helen, your body, and then to me and your body. And then he pointed to himself and said, and my body. May all look different, but they are not. They are all the same. They are all her body. Really, she has put a part of herself into each of us. Regarding the question in my letter, he had, quote, it need not happen like that. And he spoke at length about the necessity for goodwill. He said it can't be just a superficial goodwill, but a deep, sincere bonne volonté. He repeated this many times in different ways, and then spoke of the destructiveness of rancor. He said rancor and hatred eat at the consciousness. It makes a man as low as an animal. No, lower, a worm or an insect. It comes from the lowest part of the being. Then he said, the world is in such a state. But one has to be a guru to be the leader of a nation. Then he became quiet for a while. And when he spoke again, he referred to goodwill. And he said, I tell you this because it is your birthday, that you have the capacity. He was silent for a moment, then said, no, no one has the capacity. It is all her. One only has to see her for a moment. She casts her glance, and it is enough. I then asked him, what about the matrimondia? He said, do not trouble yourself about it. It will go on. The work means nothing. That was so powerful for me because all my life I've worked and worked hard. And here he says, do not trouble yourself about it. It will go on. The work means nothing. Then he was quiet again for a moment. Then he smiled, and we got up to leave. He asked me, have I given you your card? His secretary gave him a card and 2 blessings packets, and handing the card and 1 blessing packet to me, he said, in a joyous, powerful, resonant voice, Bonne fête, carrying something in it of the way Mother wished us a happy birthday. I bent down to touch his hand, and he held my head with both of his hands, giving me his blessing. Then he took Mary Helen's hand firmly in his, pressed the blessings packet into it, and held it there for a long time, giving us all the while the most radiant smile. Namaste all.
Sir, you have another more 10 minutes time. You can show your that book of flowers, and that also you can show, sir.
Yes, certainly I can. I don't know where it's been put now. I had it right here, and now it's been put someplace.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. To speak to you about the flowers and their messages, this is the first book we did, and it was published in 1973. It's had many new editions since then. And then there was a second book that was published in the year 2000. And that was a 2-volume edition, quite expensive, whereas this one, even now, is just 240 rupees. 240 rupees. But I have just begun a new book that may take 2 years, and it will be Mother Significance's arranged by the colors of the flowers. So if you don't know the significance and you don't know the botanical name, these two books are not too valuable for you. But you can always tell a color. So all the red flowers will be grouped amongst with the red, all the white, all the yellow, pink, purple, and this will help many, many people to understand the vast importance of the flowers. If you truly can make an inner contact with the flowers, it will help you in your inner progress tremendously. I hold a flower to my heart or to my head and invoke the divine presence, and the vibration of that flower goes into my being. We should try that. Are there any questions from people listening? I have only a few minutes left.
Okay, let me explain. जदि किछि प्रश्न अछि आमे पचारि परिबा नारदजी को. If is there any questions to ask Naradji, you may. Sir, one question: how you reached Auroville, sir? Please explain. You are not audible. Excuse me, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
So what is the question?
How you reached Auroville?
I did not raise Auroville. Mother did.
Yes, sir. Any more questions from other participants, please?
Sorry. He is asking how Naradjee reached at Auroville. How he reached at Auroville. Is it audible?
How much?
Am I audible to you? How you reached at Auroville? You reached in Auroville.
Yes, Naradji answered that. I have not reached here. Only mother did everything by reaching Auroville. I am nothing. Okay, got it? नारदजी कहउछन्ते जे मोर एठी पहुंचीबारे मोर किछि सामर्थ्य नाही मा ही स्वयं मते एठी के आनी छन्ती.
थैंक यू. सुनी परिलो. धन्यवाद.
थैंक यू.
Thank you.
आउ किछि प्रश्न? Okay, I had saying Naradji.
अपा प्रणाम. मु कहूची आपनकर आमे तो भलो भाबरे बुझी पारलुनी. आपण टिके सारांश किछि कहिबे कि अपा नारदजी जा कहिले?
I need a translation.
Another question has arrived. Basan Bhai is asking, I heard saying Narad leaving all assignments at USA. Please say something.
Narad made what? His own
Assignments at USA. What type of assignments, Vasant bhai? Can you please?
I can just say that I built a garden that I named Mother's Garden. And it was open to everyone, and people would come and meditate there, or they would stay in the house for sometimes 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And I brought all the flowers that Mother named from the West, because Mother knew the flowers of the West because she lived in France, where these flowers grew. So flowers such as tulips, blossoming, and many other beautiful ones that don't grow in a tropical climate, I was able to grow. And when I had to make the decision from my inner being to leave Mother's Garden, which was the most major step, I believe, of my life, and move to Auroville, Mother made it possible that 2 disciples bought the place and have agreed to continue Mother's Garden. I will say goodbye now and thank you for attending. Namaste.
Namaste. You are most welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Naradjee. You have narrated everything so nicely, so smoothly. I'm just running out of words. You have given your precious time and effort in speaking here. Your words were so inspiring and your presence was invaluable. We extend our deepest gratitude. We offer this session at the lotus feet of the Mother and Lord Sri Aurobindo. At the end of this session, I would like to thank all the Mother's children present over here, and we will meet again tomorrow, that is 21st February, on the Mother's 146th birth anniversary at same time, same platform, with a new topic and new speaker. Once again, thank you so much. We conclude this session by reciting the mantra. Let Om Shri Aurobindo Sharanam Mama. Om Shri Mata Sharanam Mama. Om Shri Aurobindo Sharanam Mama. Om Shri Mata Sharanam Mama. Om Shri Aurobindo Sharanam Mama. शरणं मम ॐ श्रीमाता शरणं मम ॐ श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम ॐ श्रीमाता शरणं मम ॐ श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम ॐ श्रीमाता शरणं मम ॐ श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम ॐ श्रीमाता शरणं मम ॐ श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम ॐ श्रीमाता शरणं मम ॐ श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम ॐ श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम ॐ श्री अरविन्द शरणं मम. Once again, thank you so much. We conclude this session by concentrating on mother's music. Ma Bande Mataram.